Good morning to each and every one of you. I hope you had a good rest last night, and I hope it wasn't like mine. I woke up 2:30 this morning, and I have not been able to go back to sleep. I'm on my New York time. But God is good. And all the time, God is good. So we're here today to talk to you. Is there anyone inside here you have never been hurt by someone else? Because if you have not had that experience, you can leave now. You don't need this seminar. Our topic is overcoming lingering hurt. I can tell you, my friends, that there are times when family members, church members, friends, and co-workers will say or do things that can hurt you badly. And but for the grace of God, you would have reacted differently. Some of them don't even know that they're alive because of God's amazing grace. But we thank God. Could we, the monitors? So if there's someone here who don't know who the lovely lady over there is, her first name is Honey, her middle name is Honey, and her last name is Honey. So in order for me to call it those names quickly, I just say Honey, 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 and I get her full name. Overcoming lingering hurt, a challenge to become emotionally and spiritually whole. It is said, honey, that relationships are ambiguous emotional investment. And they're ambiguous because on the one hand, they're supposed to bring you joy and happiness. That's your expectation of friendship. But there's also the possibility that it could bring you the greatest pain.
And that is the irony. Because indeed, anything and anyone that can make you laugh can make you cry. And in our families, we live with this dualism where we seek love and we seek friendship and we seek bonding. But then the closer we get and the more invested we get is the more vulnerable we become. And so many times we're left with scars and wounds and hurts that we often never recover from if we never get help.
So, what are some of the things, what are some of the issues, whether in relationships or friendships or whatever it is, what are some of the things that can cause lingering hurt?
In families, we are expected to be loyal. We expect that the people we are in close relationships with will watch our backs and will protect us and will keep us safe. So when those bonds are broken and our secrets are spilled and the injuries that we receive from these individuals are damaging, then it hurts. So unfaithfulness is a big chart in our relationships.
Another one we would like to add to the list is physical abuse. I want you to listen to me, church. It happens in our church. It happens in our Christian families. One of the church that I pastored in New York City, about a year after I moved on from that church to another place of working, I got a call. One of the elders, someone that while I was there is a family I looked up to, one of the elders, his wife was in a shelter. They called me to go visit the wife in a shelter because her husband, the elder, one of the elders of the church, physically abused her. She had to run for her life. And sometimes too, you know, honey, in forming relationships, sometimes we see the early signs and we ignore them. You know, I was up in my New York office. I received this call. And the lady said, Dr. Smith, I have a question to ask you. I said, okay, go ahead. She said, well, I'm engaged to this guy, and we're thinking of getting married, but we had an argument. And he got so upset, and he slapped me in the face. What do you think I should do? I said, come, what I think you should do? I said, but he didn't slap me. If he slapped me, I would know what to do. I wouldn't have to call somebody to ask them. But anyhow, I said to her, do you really want my counsel? She said, yes, Dr. Smith, you're the expert. I said, no, this don't really need an expert, you know. This only needs some common sense. So I said, well, what should I do? Because we're engaged. I said, do you want to hear what you should do? Yes. I said, run. She said, what do you mean? I said, run. Well, it didn't go much further after that because she didn't want that. She didn't accept that. So we ended the conversation. Some months later, I got a call again. Dr. Smith, you remember me? Who are you again? Oh, you remember that lady you were talking to and and you told her she should run? Yeah, oh yes, I remember. What happened? Well, I didn't listen to you, and I married him. Okay, so what's happening? He's beating my life out now. What do you think I should do, Dr. Smith? I said, stay.
Friends, we laugh, but this is a very serious issue. And I want you to know that in a Christian family, in any family for that matter, but let us say people who don't know Christ don't know better, in a Christian home, this should never, ever be happening. We've got to teach our children, you don't hit people. You don't hit each other. When you have a problem, you talk it out, you work it out. And if you're at an impasse, you reach out and get help. But you never, ever hit upon your child or hit upon your spouse. It is not God's intent for the family. And anyone who has such low impulse control and who is isn't able to contain their rage and their upset, you need help. And there is help. So don't stay in a domestic violence situation. You really need to reach out and go get help so that God's Spirit can dwell in your home.
Akin to physical abuse is also emotional abuse. And oftentimes, we don't talk about it. It's like we take it for granted. And there are times when the emotional pain is even more severe than the physical pain. Mm-hmm. And we have to take responsibility of inflicting emotional pain. Sometimes the words we said. You know, I had a situation that I'm aware of. They had an argument, husband and wife, they had an argument. And the man was leaving for work. And the lady said to her, I wish you never came back. She was angry, and she said it. And he left for work. Would you believe me that that man had an automobile accident and died on the spot? When she comes in for counseling, that's what's on her conscience. The last word I said to him, I wish you never came back, and he did not. Emotional wounds are deep, and we have to take responsibility for what we say. It caused lingering hurt.
Many times we experience rejection. We experience people who diminish the value that they place on you, and they say and do things to you that establishes a distance, and yet they are your spouse or your child or your parent, and whatever the relationship is. So rejection hurts. Nobody wants to feel less than. In fact, we often say to clients or the people that we work with, when somebody do something to you that that hurts your feelings, don't allow it. You have control over it, in other words. So as much as the person is inflicting the pain and is inflicting the stimulus, don't allow it to get so deep that you hurt to the extent that you will damage yourself or harm yourself, because the person is not responsible for how you feel. Do you get what I'm saying? So they're doing something really disgusting and upsetting, but you have control to the extent that you allow it to hurt you. So rejection will hurt, but you've got to be able to control how much damage it does to you. Because many people get so depressed, so lost, feel so rejected that they want to do self-harm. And sometimes they even take their own lives. So rejection is one of those things that really gets under people's skin.
Financial loss. We are cognizant of the fact that sometimes a business goes bad. Sometimes an individual is fired from his or her job. It causes a certain financial stress on the family, mortgage or rent to pay, to take care of the children, the family. And oftentimes, it causes great pain. And that pain can sometimes translate in what we call displacement. So we take out the anger and the hurt from the loss by being cruel to our spouse, being cruel to our children. Displacement affects the entire family. So what we're saying, folks, that be aware that sometimes business can go wrong. Sometimes you could lose your job. Sometimes there can be some severe financial loss that cause pain, real pain. And we're going to tell you how to deal with that pain, how to manage that pain, and how to work through it. We're going to talk about that. But what we're identifying are some of the things that really cause human hurt and human pain.
Sometimes you work really hard at your relationship. You give 100%, and it's just not enough. For some reason, the other person isn't putting in their part, and your relationship breaks down, and that hurts. I have had so many couples that come in, and they're telling me, I don't know what else to do. I do everything I know how, and my spouse will not cooperate, or my spouse is not desiring me, or whatever. They just don't want to be with me anymore. And that hurts. You know, it leads back to rejection, and it leads back to all the other things we talked about earlier. So there are so many things that we sometimes don't have control over.
And sometimes it could be like an engagement gone wrong, or it's not an engagement, but it's a relationship, and the person ends it.
Or somebody that you're pursuing and you had lots of expectations, but the relationship didn't work. Sometimes you pray and you ask God to really give you wisdom to help you to get this bonding going. But for some reason, the person might see somebody else and they move on, and you're left feeling like you're rejected.
And that hurts.
And that hurts.
It hurts.
So failed relationships, sometimes people carry these wounds for a very long time.
And there are times when your child could create that pain by the choices they make. So many parents have had the painful experience of seeing their son or their daughter walk away from the faith that they love and embrace. A child who was active in Pathfinder, a child who grew up in the church, took part in so many things in church, and you had bright hopes for that child. And by the time they reach teenager or older, young adults, they walk away from that faith. I know it hurts. And if you're not careful, it can stay in the labyrinth of your soul for a long time. Can you understand what it is for a parent to go inside a prison to visit a son or a daughter? It's not just the embarrassment. It's the emotional pain, knowing that which came from your very womb, knowing that which your son or your daughter, whom you had such great hopes and expectation, took to the wrong crowd and find herself in that place. Yes, disappointment in children at times can cause great pain. Now, when hurt comes, sometimes we tend to develop some irrational ideas. And maybe the reason why we have these irrational ideas is to help to cushion the pain. But let's explore some of these irrational ideas.
So sometimes in order to feel better, we convince ourselves that we're responsible for what happens. And we tell ourselves in some situations, you know what, it probably will go away. I'll get over it. I'll sleep it off. And sometimes that's not going to happen. So you sleep for hours and you wake up and the hurt is still there. So it is irrational to think that that's enough. We sometimes need a lot more help than that.
Or we may say to ourselves, this is my lot in life. You know, there's a thing, and we will talk about it, learned helplessness, where we just accept it that this is my lot. And we find ourselves in an abusive relationship. We find ourselves in a situation where we just tell ourselves, this is it, we have to. And we're here to say to you, the way God created you, you don't have to settle for anything that is less than the best, because you're a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and you have a right to aim high, no matter the challenge.
Sometimes you convince yourself that you're responsible, and you feel guilt, and you tell yourself, you know, I don't know how dumb I could be. I should have seen this coming. Now, it is true that sometimes the damage is imposed because you saw lots of warning signs that the potential to do what was done was there. And despite counsel, you went ahead and made your choice. So yes, there are times when you should have seen it coming, but there are other times when you're just blindsided. Because, you know, people can pretend. And sometimes what you see is not what you get. So there are genuine cases where you prayed and you thought that this was really God's will, and you got into this relationship and it turned out to be the opposite. So you're not always responsible for some of the outcomes that you experience.
Denying the cause of the hurt does not help. It makes no sense for you to know what has happened and you try to deny it. So the best thing to do is sometimes is to have individuals who can help to help. And one of our recommendations is a close friend. Because indeed, a close family member, I should say, a close family member can sometimes help to open the door to healing. Families do play great parts in helping to restore the human soul.
In addition to that, we have people in our network we call friends. You know, the Bible says a friend is better, is it the Bible that says that? A friend is better than a brother or something? But the idea is...
Stick it closer than a brother.
The idea is that all of us should find individuals that we trust. And individuals, you know, human beings are flawed. So although you trust, you know that the potential is there that they will err too. However, you give as much as you are able to in a relationship, and you trust that people will be loyal to you. But if you have that relationship and you're suffering with pain emotionally or otherwise, if you don't want to seek help outside of that network, then invest your confidence in this person and say, look, I need you to help me pray. Or this is what's going on with me. I don't want the world to know, but I need to talk about it. It releases the pressure and the tension that you often carry when you carry these hurts. Lots of people get depressed because they lock in their hurt and they don't go out and do what we call cathartically, let it go. Talk to somebody, pray even about it. We just carry it and we sulk and we hurt, and eventually it becomes overwhelming. So seek a friend that you can disclose this to and that often helps.
If you notice, we said a trusted friend. A trusted friend. And loved ones, if you are that trusted friend, the operative word there is trusted. Trusted. Somebody trusts you enough to tell you the privacy of their heart. Someone trusts you enough to tell you their inner pain. And the worst thing you can do on planet Earth is to betray that trust. The worst thing you can do is to go and tell someone else the secret of someone's heart. As a matter of fact, if you do that, It would have been better for you if a milestone had been hung around your neck and you be cast in the depths of the sea. That you know your Bible very well. It is so sad, my friends, that sometimes it's hard to find people who are confidential, that you can really go to and open up your heart with, and they don't hold it against you 10 years after. We have to learn to be trusted. And of course, our pastors sometimes play a very vital role in helping us through challenging situations and difficult moments. I want to share with you about Elijah's experience, because sometimes we behave like Elijah. The text is there, 1 Kings 19, 4 and onwards, verse 4 and onward. You know the story well. I'll read it, some verses from the New International Version. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. You know the story very well. This is Elijah that was on Mount Carmel. This is Elijah that brought fire down and consumed the altar. This is Elijah that 450 prophets of Baal were slain. This is the great Elijah who had seen the awesome power of God. And Ahab went and told his Jezebel wife, Jezebel, what Elijah had done. And all Jezebel says, this man, by tomorrow, I'll take care of him. Jezebel threatened Elijah. Elijah ran away into the wilderness, and here he is now, depressed, stressed out. Oh, Lord, take my life. If he wants to die, why is he running in the wilderness? Just go look for Sister Jezebel and say, hey, sis, I heard you're looking for me. Here I am. Jezebel says he's going to kill him. Oh, Lord, take my life. If you want to die, Elijah, go to Jezebel, not the Lord. The Lord wants to save you. Jezebel wants to kill you. Sometimes that's what we do. We go to God and we complain and we complain and we complain, and we don't look at how God blessed us yesterday. We only see the problem of today. We don't remember yesterday and the day before. And we have to remember, we should never forget. We should have no fear for the future unless we should forget the way the Lord has led us in the past. Amen? The way he has led us in the past. Let's talk to our folks on how we can diagnose lingering hurt. How can we know that that hurt is there?
So as much as you try at times, you have situations that are overwhelming, and you seek help and you think it's all gone. But then you notice that frequently you keep, every time you think, the image of the hurt comes right back, and you just can't seem to get it out of your mind. I've had so many clients who say, I've tried, I just can't get it out of my mind. So when you keep ruminating and your day is preoccupied with the hurt that has passed, then you know you are in a state going south. You need to reach out and get help.
How about when some relatively minor incident trigger the reaction within you?
We tend to have what we call cues. So when situations occur and there are familiar cues or triggers that are associated with that event, when we encounter them, it chips us right back into the experience. And sometimes it was really traumatic. The outcome was so traumatic that as much as we try to dismiss it, the triggers bring us back to that. So it might have been the sounds that was associated with the event. It may have been the smell. It might have been the color that the person wore, or the voice of something that was done. The action of the person trigger you, and you bring you right back into that situation.
And what we talk about, like physical symptoms, just by hearing, just by sensing, just by remembering. And what we are saying, folks, is that once that is happening, you have to understand that the problem has not been solved. Whatever has caused the hurt, you have not gotten over it. Even though you might be telling yourself, I pray and it's behind me now, it's in the past. When these little things happen and they trigger this emotional response, then we are saying the hurt is lingering. It's still there in the labyrinth of your soul and you haven't gotten over it.
And honey, I want to say something about this because this is associated with emotional stress and emotional trauma. And so many of our family members are experiencing trauma that has not been diagnosed. So you were molested as a child. Somebody touched you inappropriately and you never said anything about it. You grew up to be an adult even, and you never talked about it. And all of a sudden, something that was associated with that event gets triggered in your distant memory, and it brings it right back. And then you start to react violently, or you get very angry and abrupt, and people can't understand what happened. You yourself might not even know what's going on. And sometimes it takes therapy. You gotta go see a therapist who will help uncover the levels of trauma and get to it. And they'll help you reconnect so that you can reintegrate and get yourself out of that trauma. So sometimes you see your young people acting out, or you see even your spouses acting out, and you have no clue because everything seems on the surface to be going well. But it could be that there are layers of hurt beneath that wasn't dealt with that comes up at those times. So there are lots of things that trigger you back into events you're trying to get rid of, but you're unconscious. You know, the brain has the capacity to take damages or hurts out of your conscious state and pushes it, we call it repression, pushes it out of our consciousness. But then there are times when we get triggered and it comes right back and overwhelms us, then we get depressed and then we get anxiety issues, and it just bleeds into our entire being.
Let's share with you now some guidelines for conceptualizing hurt. First of all, we say recognize that recognizing hurt as a normative response to perceived loss or painful situation. How can one recognize hurt as a normative response?
So what we're saying is there are incidences that we will encounter in our experiences, in our relationship with our children, with our spouse, with our families, with in-laws, with co-workers, church members. People will annoy you and upset you. And sometimes things will happen that really cause pain, emotional pain. Grief is a normal response to some of those kinds of hurt. But you have to be able to recognize the difference between what is normal and what is acute or what is abnormal. And so when it lingers and when you can't just say, I'm sorry, and pray about it and be forgiven and get rid of it, then you know you are in danger zone. You're high risk for other mood disorders even, because this isn't going away.
And we are also saying that when individuals are going through crisis and they are hurting, they need to understand that that hurt is a normal response to the crisis. And don't allow the hurt to become complicated, because what happens is that it's like you take one tablet and you take another tablet to counteract that tablet and deepens the problem. What we're saying is that hurt is a normal response to crisis. So when you're going through severe crisis, you're supposed to feel hurt. Don't become over crisis over your hurt. Accept your hurt as normal and deal with the hurt rather than creating a crisis over your hurt. That's what we're saying. Does that make sense to you? Second time. Guidelines for conceptualizing hurt. Recognize the hurting person as an active agent in the process of healing. In other words, let's create a scenario here. Let's say there's a husband and wife, and for some unfortunate reason, the husband went out and had an affair. And the wife finds out, the wife discovers, she is going to hurt. As a human being, that hurts. Now, the family unit is damaged, and healing needs to take place to bring the family back together. What this is saying, it's not just the husband who has to do everything to bring the family back. It's not just the husband, even though he's the one that went out, who will have to do everything to heal the heart of the wife. There's something the wife has to do in order for her to be healed also. She will have to tell herself, I will forgive him and forgive him in order for her to heal better. Because if she don't forgive, it's hard for her to heal. So she is an active agent in the process of her own healing. She has to tell herself, I'm going to forget it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to trust my God. Whatever messages she has to send to herself, she has to send those messages in order for her heart to heal. Because she has to tell herself, I cannot hurt for the rest of my life. So while the guilty party has a lot to do in the healing process, the guiltless party also has something to do for the healing of his or her soul. Recognize the hurting person as an active agent in the process of healing. This next one, recognize meaning reconstruction as a critical aspect in the healing process.
In the last incident where the guilty person had to be an active agent, this leads right into this. For example, in the case of a divorce, you're divorced and you're hurt because the person you loved and invested your emotions with divorced you, and now you're left. Now, your perception of what that means could foster the hurt that you're having, because you might think, oh, I will never fall in love again, or this is the end of my life, or, without this person in my life, I am nobody. Your status is broken. You've probably been the wife of the prime minister or the wife of the whatever role your husband played. And so now that the relationship is over, you feel like you're no one. So the meaning you ascribe to that experience fosters the hurt. So you have to reconstruct that meaning and realize that even though you're divorced, you're still a person. The relationship is over, but you're not dead. So you have to get up, clean up yourself. No, you need some time to get over it, and it is reasonable to know that it is normative to grieve the loss of this relationship and the loss of what it meant to you, but no, you have to reconstruct that meaning, and you have to find other reasons to recognize your value and not just attach your value to just this marriage. You're still who you are. You have all the skills and strengths that you have. Now you have to get up, brush yourself up, pretty up yourself, and go back on the market or do whatever you have to do. But life is not over.
And the same thing can be said in a relationship where ending a relationship or someone breaking up a relationship, that's not the end of your life. Now, you were on cloud nine, which is okay to be there when you had your girlfriend or you had your boyfriend, and you can introduce them to your friends and you go around and you're happy and so forth, and life is meaningful for you. But now the relationship ends. You don't go spend the rest of your life in a hole. You don't stop going to church because of that. You don't stop returning a faithful tithe because of that. You don't stop reaching out to your friends and call your loved ones. And no. Put meaning to your life and say to yourself, I'm still a child of the King. You must see yourself still of someone with value and someone with worth. And you must say, higher than the highest human thought can reach is God's ideal for me. Godliness and godlikeness is the goal to reach. Come on, my friends. Don't you look down on yourself. You tell yourself that you are somebody special. Put meaning back into your life, my friends.
I had a case where a woman was divorced from her husband and she wanted to kill herself. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, I got this call from her friend who she had called to come over. And when the friend called, she said, her friend was there crying her life out and wanted to kill herself. So I investigated the situation and learned that she was there with her. So I said, okay, it is now 2 o'clock in the morning. There's not much I can do. However, I'd be willing to see her first thing in the morning at 9 o'clock. So stay with her, make sure she gets some sleep, make sure she has a hot drink or something to eat, and bring her in at 9 o'clock in the morning. Sure enough, she turned up 9 o'clock first thing. And when I interviewed her, I learned her story. Her husband was a traveling person, and she found some information in his luggage that he was having an affair. And she was totally dependent on him. He was a high-powered executive, and she never had to work. And so her entire life was wrapped up in this relationship. And she thought this was the end of her life. She never had a driver's license because she had a chauffeur. And she just thought, how am I going to make it? What am I going to do? So she wanted to kill herself. So when I finished listening to her, I said, listen to what you're telling me. Your husband went out and have an affair, and you want to kill yourself? I can understand if you wanted to kill him. I said, that is the most irrational thing you can think. And I just tried to help reconstruct her meaning. And by the end of the discussion, she was perked up.
She wanted to kill him.
So sometimes people just get into this doldrum and they make the wrong judgments.
Lingering hurt. Left alone, a hurting person may become increasingly withdrawn, distracted, and unable to experience joy. Left alone. Elijah, when he was going through his experience, the Bible tells us that he left his servant and Beersheba, and he went by himself alone. And that was when he got to that desperate point now where he's asking God to take his life. Left alone. When you're hurting, my friends, you do not want to be left alone. When you're hurting, that's when you reach out to your friends. That's when you reach out to your church members. That's when you go to church. That's where you find strength to move on. Pain, my friends, is real, but you have to manage it. You have to manage it.
There's a physiological response that occurs when we have these experiences. It's not all emotional. When you hurt, you depress your immune system. And when that happens, the entire body responds. So the nurses and doctors around in your audience will tell you that when you get sad news or sadness in your system, it is like an infusion that occurs, and it depresses your capacity to reason and to be rational and to think clearly. You make very poor judgments because the cortical function literally shuts down. And when that happens, it depresses, there are certain hormones in your body that when you're happy and excited, that's where it's coming from. You have substances called serotonin and dopamine. These substances are designed by God to give you the capacity to feel pleasure. When you get sad and depressed, it shuts down and depresses these hormones, and they don't secrete at the levels at which they should. So it doesn't matter what's going on around you that's pleasurable, you don't feel pleasure. You just want to be sad and to be upset and to cry and to lock yourself away. So sometimes you can't help yourself. And that's why many times when people get so depressed, we have to get them chemical treatment, because we need the chemical substances to go in and increase the levels of serotonin to bring the levels back up. So we create a balance in the system. It's a very integrated, complex process. And that's why we have to help ourselves. We can't just sit there and wallow in self-pity, because it depresses us more and more.
My friends, you are still hurting when you keep feeling discouraged over life and situation. You become negative towards others. You have lost your appetite, or you're overworking. You have trouble sleeping, or you keep waking up during the night. You're hurting. You're hurting when you frequently get anxious or worried for no obvious reason. You have less interest in what used to make you happy. You're hurting. When you are tired and lethargic and have trouble motivating yourself to get things done. You sometimes feel like a failure and are critical of your shortcomings. Now, talk to me. Talk to these people. Because it's a human phenomenon when we are hurting, that we put all that burden on ourselves and we start seeing how we fail and we become critical of ourselves, and it's like we make matters worse because we're dumping on ourselves. How do we avoid this? Or is it wrong doing it? And if it's wrong, how do we avoid it?
No, it's not. It's normal and it is human. Like we said, there are normative responses to painful experiences. So when we are in our happy moods and we're logical and conscious of our existence, we have to take precautions. You know, we don't wait until we get the common cold to start stacking up on our vitamins. We take our vitamin C and we take our exercises and we sleep because we want to be healthy. We want to have strong immune system to fight off the attacks, to fight off the virus and other things that will attack us. So it is in our emotional health. We have to make sure that we know what to do in the event these things occur. So when we have sadness and we have difficult times, we already know that we're likely to want to withdraw, want to isolate, we are not going to sleep well or want to have an appetite. So we have to make ourselves reach out and make ourselves get out of bed. Open the windows, pull the blinds, take showers, feed yourself. Do the things that you know will lift you out of those kinds of situations so you don't stay
Before we get to what we do,
bogged down.
Here, I think you missed my question. So let me repeat it again. Sometimes when we keep dumping on ourselves, making matters worse. So I'm hurting, let's say I was in a relationship. Well, I am in a relationship, but so it's a make-believe story. I'm in a relationship, and it broke up. That hurts because I lose the relationship. But on top of the breaking up, I start beating up on myself. And I start saying, well, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have, maybe, and spend the rest of my life getting more depressed, not just because of the breakup itself, but because of what I'm heaping up on myself. Should I do that? And if I'm doing it, what should I do?
So you're saying if when the hurt occurs, you, instead of beating up on yourself, you've got to accept that what has happened has happened. It is a reality that this relationship is over.
Right.
It is a reality my husband walked away or my wife walked away. I lost the job. The financial investment went down.
And I might have made some mistakes.
And I
but
may
at
even
this point,
be responsible for some of the things that led to that. But the reality is what's done is done. So at this point, what you need to do is to accept that
so
this is a reality. What do I do? What are my choices?
In other words, stop hammering yourself. Stop hammering yourself. Even if you made some mistakes, you analyze those mistakes, take them to the Lord, ask the Lord to help to forgive you, and move on. You cannot dwell on it for the rest of your life. It's over, it's over. Move on. What to do with your hurt? What to do with your pain? Identify the factors that have caused the hurt. And that's what we're talking about now. This is when we take an introspective look at ourselves and we say, okay, I did this and I did that, and that was wrong. And I own it, I accept it, but I now have to move on. I can live with that guilt for the rest of my life. And that's what some people do.
Also, honey, I think it's important for us to note, when it takes more than one it doesn't matter that, or it does matter, but it's not only the person who inflicted the hurt that is responsible for the hurt. Sometimes the person who is experiencing the hurt is also culpable. Sometimes for what you didn't do, for sometimes enabling the hurt, the person, the perpetrator. You know, sometimes just the way you sat in those situations and accepted negative treatment was a problem. Maybe you should have walked away a long time ago, or you should have reached out a long time ago, or you should have stood up and be assertive and say, don't you ever speak to me like that. Don't you ever treat me like that. Stop it. You know, so sometimes we're responsible for the way we're treated. However, it doesn't negate the reality that we experience when others inflict their poor behavior on us. So it works both ways.
And as you said, honey, sometimes we really enable the behavior, because I know of this situation where the lady, he said it was a gift, she said it was a loan, but the amount was $25,000. Now, you shouldn't have a mistake with $25,000 as to whether it's a loan or a gift. You have to be smart enough to know, well, if it's a gift, don't bother yourself about it. But if it's not a gift, you should have something where a thing called signature is on it. And if the person can't write, let them put an X, and you go to the notary public and get it notarized. But 4 years down the road, 3 years, 2 years, a year down the road, there should not be he said it's a gift and she says it's a loan. There should be something there. So sometimes, and when the person walks away and says, no, it was a gift, and you're hurting now, that's your hurt. You created that hurt because you didn't do what you're supposed to do. Now, identify negative, distorted cognitive messages and replace them with positive, realistic self-talk.
Many times we stay in our hurts because we keep feeding, or we have what we call scripts or injunctions, and we tell ourselves, all the negative things that comes to our mind, and we feed on this negative message. And if you feed on negative thoughts, you're going to behave in negative ways, and you're going to have hurtful feelings. So you have to change, we call it self-talk. Change the messages that you're sending yourself. Your life is not over. This is not the only person that you will fall in love with. Life is never going to be the same again. Yes, it can change.
I will get another job.
You will get
another job. I can go back to school. There are so many things that we can do to change.
So think positive, be optimistic, look ahead, and look up.
We spoke about this earlier on. Helplessness. Learn helplessness. And that is when you just accept things that this is my lot in life. It's not going to get better. It makes no sense for me to try. It's like you are smart. You're an intelligent person. You want to go back to school. You want to pursue something. And you're just telling, oh, no, I can't be bothered. Of course you can be bothered. Get up and go. You can. My friends, I have something to tell you. And I'm telling you not because I'm boasting. It's because I want to motivate maybe just one person inside here. When I left Andrews University, I had 3 degrees. I had 2 masters and I had a doctorate. I went to work in New York and I was okay. But I realized as I started working that some of the issues that were coming up in my ministry, I had my theological preparation, but there were some other preparations I needed. I went back to school. I did a master's in marriage and family counseling. And when I graduated, I told myself, I'm going to go on to do the doctorate. And I sent up to the school for the application form. And when I came and I looked at the requirements and so forth, I saw I had to do 5 courses in statistics. And I said, no. From I left high school, I have not done one thing in math. I am not about to take this up. And I threw the application form one side. But at the same time, I'm going around motivating young people. You can do it. You can fulfill your dreams no matter what. A mother brings her son to me. He's failing in math, and I sit there encouraging the boy. You don't have to be afraid of math. Just practice. Just practice. You don't have to be afraid of science. Just do what you have to do. And here am I, motivating young people, motivating young adults. And one day something comes to me and say, you hypocrite. Why you have that form sitting down back there? Aren't you afraid of statistics? And so I grabbed the form, and I filled them out, and I sent the application into the school, and I got accepted. And I started going to class. And there, the dreaded day came when I had to register for my first course in statistics. And I started, and I'm telling you, I had all reasons to dread it. And I buckled down. I go to my wife, and as you see her there, she's a math genius. And I go to my wife, and she helped me. I go to my daughter. I'm the only one that is not a genius, But you have to understand, I gave everything to my wife and daughter. So I'm left with nothing, I only talk. And I go to them, and they help me, and they help me, and they help me. And folks, I start working with numbers. And I'm not lying to you. Sometimes I sit at the dining table eating, and I just see some numbers running across. Hello. And I did course 1. I did my 2nd course. I did my 3rd course, my 4th course. I did my 5 courses in statistics. And as I'm standing before you, the lowest grade I got in any one was an A-. So when I stand in front of you, and I stand in front of young people, and I sit with them in my office, and I tell them they can do it. I tell them they're a child of God, and that God wants them to succeed. And no matter how difficult it is, they can make it. I know I'm not a hypocrite, because I was once in their position, and I go to God and ask Him for help. I go to others, and I ask them for help, and then I make it. And I say to you, you too can do it. Go to God and ask for help. Go to others and ask for help. Fulfill your dreams. Stop holding back. Stop holding back. Go forward. Go forward. Go forward in faith, my friends. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of challenges, because the God you serve is greater than all your challenges. Engage in meaningful reconstruction.
We talked about this earlier. Whatever it is that is your framework, whatever meaning you have ascribed to your circumstances that limits you or creates deficit boundaries, you need to reframe that. It's all about perspective. You're going to operate through the lenses you see. In front of you are endless opportunities to have a different experience or a different outcome. But if you keep doing the same things you've always done, you're going to get the same results. So think outside of the box, push yourself ahead, and whatever the difficulties you're experiencing that caused the hurt, don't think that that's the end of the journey. You're on a journey, you're going to get bruised, brush your knees off, and keep going. God is ahead of you, and He'll take you safely through.
Avoid irrational thinking. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy path.
Sometimes it is that others have told you you won't ever make it. You'll never. I had a wife who told me that her husband said, if you leave me, that's the end of your life. You'll never be able to do anything without me. And she believed it. And even though he did leave, she wouldn't attempt to do anything because she believed that she couldn't. It isn't true. Your mind is the limit of what you will do. So change your construction. Change the way you think, and you can surpass yourself.
I want to close off with this experience that I had, similar to what Honey just said to you. A young couple, very young couple, came in to talk to me. The guy was is a U.S. citizen, born in the United States. The young lady migrated from another country. He married her and is to file for her papers, but is treating her like slave. It's like she has to be a dog in order for him to allow the paper to come through. He looked at her and he said, "You are nothing. You are nobody. You need me to be somebody." I looked at him in my office and I said, "Do you really mean that? Do you look at this woman and think that she's nobody?" Because she told me all of that in the session. Do you believe that? And when I was finished with him, you can understand he never came back for another session. But that's all right. I got it in anyhow. He told me inside here that he was finished with her. He ended the relationship. At the same time, when he was going on, he had a woman somewhere else. And he ended the relationship and did not finish the filing for the paper. He said, "I'm going to show you that you are nothing. I'm going to show you that you need me to become something, to be somebody." When he walked away, she came in for her next session. I said, "Your husband told you that he's going to show you that you're nobody, and I'm going to show you that you have a God that has already made you somebody." He divorced her. I counseled that woman. I put her in the hands of an attorney who because of whatever the situation is, certain laws in the United States, he had started filing the paper. He was not able to stop. He thought he could, but because he abandoned her and went and married someone else, the papers continued through. She got her paper. She applied to the University of Chicago, and she entered. She finished her graduate school. I'll never forget the day I got the email when she said to me, Dr. Smith, I'm going on to do my PhD. One day, I received an email. Dear Dr. Smith, the greatest delight that I would ever have in my life, if you both could come to my graduation. I'm graduating with my PhD. And she's graduating it in some area of biochemical engineering, something. So happened that in the very same weekend of the graduation, we were going to be in Africa, so we couldn't make it. She graduated from the University of Chicago. She's someplace in the States working in a top job, collecting some big figures. And he is still running around from one woman to another woman, thinking he's somebody when he's nobody. People will hurt you. Members, families, friends, co-worker, they will hurt you. But I want you to understand today, my friends, you serve a God who is greater than that hurt. You serve a God who is greater than that pain. Don't live with that hurt. Don't let it linger for the rest of your life. And if you know someone who is going through that pain, if you know someone whom that hurt is lingering with them, take them to the throne of grace and let them know that there is a God, one who sticketh closer than a brother. Let them know that God says, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. My brothers and sisters, may God continue to bless you. And no matter what the challenge that you may face, you just remember that your God says, when thou passest through the waters, I'll be with thee. And through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. And when you walk through the fire, remember he's going to be with you. He says, not even the flame shall kindle upon you. God bless you, my friends.